The spit landed with a wet slap, right on the forehead of the 6-year-old girl. Kessa blinked, wiped at it, and looked up at the towering alien in front of her with a confused stare. Her mother's hand stiffened around hers. Gasps snapped through the line of people waiting outside the Denver Interplanetary Embassy. Yoren Oakes, stationed 5 feet away as part of the civilian security detail, pushed off the wall. He'd been watching the diplomatic line shuffle forward for the past hour, bored out of his skull, until the blue-skinned alien with the metallic robes stepped forward and without provocation hawked something thick and shimmering onto Kessa's face. "Hey," Yoren's voice cracked like a whip. "Step back right now." The alien, 70 inches tall and built like a column of steel cords, tilted its oblong head toward him. Its translator device buzzed. The child made direct ocular engagement. "Among my kind, that is a challenge," I responded with restraint. Yoren stormed forward, hand hovering near the non-lethal deterrent clipped to his belt. "She's 6. She looked at you because you're wearing a damn chandelier on your head." The girl's mother, Zahra Malin, crouched beside Kessa, wiping the shimmering glob with the hem of her coat. "Are you okay, baby?" Kessa nodded, although her bottom lip trembled. Yoren stepped between them and the alien. His earpiece buzzed. "Yoren," came the voice of Director Hellman, "escort the Kavari delegate inside, now." He didn't move. "Sir, he spit on a child, now, Oakes." Yoren clenched his jaw but backed off. The alien delegate Vexel of the Kavari Accord walked into the embassy with the same slow, ceremonial gait it had arrived with. The crowd parted, murmuring. Some were yelling now. Yoren dropped to one knee in front of Kessa. "You okay?" She nodded again. He turned to Zahra. "We'll get this sorted, I promise." It took 2 hours before Yoren was allowed into the situation briefing room. He was still in his field jacket, boots muddy when he stepped inside. The room was cold, sterile, and packed. Every monitor along the wall displayed footage of the incident from different angles. One had a still frame of the spit midair, zoomed in. A general stood near the display. "We're confirming it wasn't toxic, but it contained biolumic agents. If it had gotten in her eyes, it might have caused temporary blindness." Director Hellman rubbed his temples. "We need to de-escalate." Yoren leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "We need to respond." "It's a cultural misunderstanding," Hellman said. Yoren stepped forward. He knew what he was doing. He did it with intention. The room quieted. A man with silver hair and a crisp suit turned from the screen. Secretary of State Langston. "We don't declare war over spit." Yoren stared at him. He didn't spit on a soldier or a diplomat, he spit on a child. "On Earth soil, in front of a crowd." Langston didn't blink. "What would you propose?" Hold him, question him, make it clear we don't accept that kind of behavior. "We can't detain a delegate mid-talks with the Kavari Accord." "Then talks are done." Hellman exhaled slowly. "Yoren, I know you've done 6 tours, I know your record, but this is diplomacy." Yoren looked around the room. "You got 100 cameras here, you saw the same thing I did. If Earth lets that slide, what message does it send?" No one answered. The footage hit the hyperfeeds by nightfall. Edited clips, then the raw feed. Kessa's tear-streaked face, the alien's slow, deliberate insult. By morning, Earth's networks were a wildfire of fury. News panels debated it. Experts on xenoculture tried to explain Kavari customs, but the public wasn't listening. Protests swelled outside Kavari embassies in 6 major cities. Someone torched a Kavari consulate in Cape Town. The Kavari ambassador recalled himself from Geneva. Then came the statement from the Kavari homeworld. The child initiated the insult. Delegate Vexel responded with measured dignity. Earth's reactions are disproportionate. That was the moment it flipped. The president of Earth Unified Command took the podium that night. "Our species has endured much. We've made peace with races that once considered us insects. We've accepted differences, extended hands, and offered trust. But today, one of our children and innocent was publicly humiliated and endangered. The Kavari Accord has not apologized. Instead, they defend the action. Earth will not tolerate this." She paused. "Effective immediately, diplomatic relations with the Kavari Accord are suspended. All Kavari vessels are ordered to leave Earth orbit. Any that remain after 24 hours will be treated as hostile. A child was spit on, and Earth remembers her name." Yoren sat beside Zara in the hospital waiting room. Kessa had developed a mild fever. Doctors were running blood panels to make sure the alien mucus hadn't triggered something unexpected. Zara looked pale. Her hands shook. "They're saying war," she whispered. Yoren nodded. "I didn't want this. I just wanted to get her passport renewed." He leaned back in the chair. "You didn't cause this." She looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I've seen what happens when Earth tries too hard to be liked." Kavari ships didn't leave. After the 24-hour deadline passed, Earth Defense launched 12 Skyguard destroyers toward the Kavari orbital station above the Pacific Hemisphere. The first warning shot sheared off an antenna array. The second disabled their main comms. The Kavari fired back. Yoren watched the first battle unfold on a wall screen at the Strategic Command Base in Colorado Springs. He'd been recalled to active duty. His field commission reinstated. Skyguard 2 down, an officer called out. Return fire. Double payload. Targeting their propulsion ring now. The Kavari station cracked open like an egg slowly, silently in the vacuum of space. Escape pods flared like fireflies. The battle lasted 19 minutes. By the end, Earth had lost 1 destroyer, 32 crew. The Kavari ship was debris, but that was just their diplomatic fleet. The war hadn't started yet. Yoren's team was deployed to intercept a Kavari scouting vessel near the asteroid belt. He'd been appointed tactical commander of a rapid response team, mostly because he was the only one who'd stood up during the initial briefing and said, "We respond hard. Or we don't respond at all." The shuttle ride out took 38 hours. In that time, Earth satellites picked up multiple Kavari warforms mobilizing from deep space. Reports suggested they were calling in allies, smaller races they'd subjugated. The Kavari didn't do short wars. They did erasure. Yoren stood at the edge of the launch bay, helmet underarm, listening to his squad click their gear into place. "This started over spit," one of the younger soldiers muttered. "No," Yoren said. "This started because they thought a child didn't matter." The boarding of the Kavari ship was chaos. The interior was unlike any Earth vessel, slick, circular corridors, no gravity fields. The team used boots with magnetic grips. Yoren led the breach on the command deck. A Kavari pilot swung at him with a long, curved blade. Yoren barely ducked, bringing his plasma baton up into the alien's side. It staggered but didn't fall. 2 more came from the left. Yoren shouted, "On me," and dove into the fray. The fight lasted 4 minutes. By the end, 3 Kavari were down, bleeding a pale orange fluid. Yoren knelt by the pilot. "Where's your fleet heading?" the pilot hissed through its translator. "You killed a diplomat for mucus. You will burn for your pride." "No," Yoren said, wiping blood from his temple. For a child, back on Earth, the public was divided. Some screamed for escalation. Others begged for peace. Kessa's condition had stabilized. No infection, but she hadn't spoken much since. Zara took her home. Photographers lined the sidewalk. Protesters chanted both in support and condemnation. Yoren visited them once in plain clothes. He brought Kessa a stuffed bear wearing a tiny astronaut helmet. She didn't smile, but she took it. The Kavari Armada arrived 17 days after the incident. Earth's defense grid lit up. Yoren was deployed to Luna Base, coordinating ground-to-orbit artillery. The first wave was brutal. Hundreds of Kavari drones descended through the atmosphere. Cities scrambled. Shields activated. The second wave hit Earth's moon, attempting to disable orbital defenses. Yoren was in the command bunker when the alarm screamed. "Breach on Sector 7. He sprinted down the hall, weapon ready. 2 Kavari soldiers had breached the wall with some kind of molecular drill. Yoren fired. 1 dropped. The other lunged. They crashed hard into the floor. Yoren's shoulder popped. Pain flared. He rolled, knees to chest, and kicked the alien off him. It slammed into the wall, dazed. He fired again. Everything went quiet. He sat back, panting, cradling his arm. "Medic," someone shouted. 2 weeks later, Yoren was in a hospital bed, arm in a sling, ribs fractured. He watched the news from a small screen in the corner. Kavari forces were retreating. Earth had held. The president gave a final address. "Let this be remembered not as a war over spit, but a war against dismissal, against the idea that our young can be harmed without consequence. We did not seek this fight, but we answered it. Yoren visited Kessa once more before his discharge. She was drawing with crayons. He sat beside her. She looked up. You were in space. Yeah, did you see them? Yeah, she paused. Did you win? He nodded. We made sure they won't come back. Kessa frowned, then colored in a blue dress on the figure she was drawing. Is that me? Yoren asked. She nodded. Who's that next to you? She pointed. That's you. Yoren smiled. Zara stood in the doorway, watching them. He looked up at her. She nodded once. He turned back to the drawing and sat quietly with the child who, with one insult, had reminded Earth of something vital. Some lines aren't about scale. Some lines are about what we stand for. The alien's arm had been severed by a hull breach during the lunar skirmish. It lay limp, bonded to the synthetic wall of the medical bay by a layer of frost, where emergency decompression had flash-frozen part of the corridor. Yoren Oak stood just outside the observation window, watching the Kavari soldier press its remaining hand against the pressure-sealed glass, eyes scanning the room's angles with a predator's calm. The medtech beside him adjusted her respirator. You're sure you want to talk to it now? It hasn't responded to anyone but its own translator. Yoren nodded. It already tried to kill me once. I figure we're past the awkward introductions. Inside, the alien hadn't moved. Its skin, a dull violet in Earth-standard lighting, shimmered faintly under the room's UV therapeutics. The wound where the limb had been cut was sealed with a biopolymer foam, but the exposed flesh around it quivered occasionally, possibly pain, possibly something else. The door hissed open. Yoren stepped through. The Kavari didn't look at him until he'd taken the only chair in the room and set a stainless steel canister on the floor between them. I brought water, Yoren said. Didn't know if you're the drinking type. I'm not here to be polite either way. The Kavari's translator unit flicked on with a subdued chime. You are the human who struck Tact Vern during the breach. Vern tried to gouge my ribs out. I'd call it an even trade. The Kavari's mouth, a horizontal slit across the lower third of its face, pulsed once. It might have been laughter or disgust. I am Wektrell. Was a fleet tactician. You are Yoren of Earth. Yeah. And you're bleeding on my floor. I have bled on many floors, most of them less sterile. Yoren leaned forward, elbows on knees. You were captured, you know that, but we didn't kill you. Could have. You were armed hostile inside a restricted zone, but we didn't. Why do you think that is? You want something. That's right. Wektrell tilted its head. You want to know where our second fleet is. You think I will tell you? No, Yoren said. I want to know why you all really came. The translator paused. You insulted our envoy. You fired upon our station. You declared no, skip the script. You think we're still playing by protocol. There is no protocol. You're in a human hospital, wrapped in human foam, breathing filtered air. You lost. Now give me something real. Wektrell's gaze drifted to the canister on the floor. Is that water from Earth? It's tap, Denver Municipal. I would like it. Yoren kicked it over gently. The alien leaned forward, unscrewed the lid with its good hand, and drank in long, deliberate swallows. When it finished, it set the canister down with care. There are old wars older than your species' first orbit, Wektrell said. The Kavari learned survival not through strength, but through sheer unwillingness to die. You remind me of that. You came to remind us of our place. No. We came because we believed you'd forgotten it. Yoren clasped his hands together. A child. That was your opening move. You think any species with a shred of self-respect was gonna let that slide. Wektrell's expression didn't change, but its tone softened. The act was not intended as aggression. Among our kind, it is a reset, a way to nullify a perceived challenge without violence. You see offense, we see peace. We see mucus on a 6-year-old, and now you burn our fleets. Yoren stood, chair legs scraping. You're losing, not just this war. You're losing the idea that fear keeps you safe. That trick doesn't work here. I know, Wektrell said. I also know Earth's moons have stockpiles of fusion charges. Your orbiting defense platforms have redundancy layers. You planned for worse than us. We planned for everything. Yoren walked to the door, paused. So here's what you do. You tell your commanders we're not interested in your rights. We don't need your apologies either. But if another Kavari shows up in this system without permission, we will erase your memory from our sky. Wektrell didn't reply. Yoren left. It was 2 days later when Wektrell's vitals flatlined, not from the wound, from voluntary metabolic shutdown, a form of ceremonial death. It had refused all further fluids. The medtechs couldn't stop it. Yoren didn't attend the disposal procedure. The body was incinerated per Earth protocol. Nothing was returned to Kavari space. By the 4th week, Earth's perimeter held steady. No new incursions, no signals from Kavari systems. Radio silence. But the diplomatic corps was restless. Inside a shielded chamber in the sub-basement of the Geneva Diplomatic Annex, the last recorded transmission from the Kavari primary node played on loop. It was intercepted 3 days prior, but only decrypted now. Yoren leaned against the far wall, watching the playback with a dozen others. The screen showed a Kavari elder, skin marked with ceremonial scarring. "We have tested the humans. They are not soft. They do not bend. We failed. Let this be the last lesson we learned too late." The room was silent after it ended. No one moved. One of the aides finally coughed. "There, not coming back," another voice. "Do we believe that?" Yoren didn't speak. He simply walked out. That evening, he returned to his temporary housing unit near the ridge above Colorado Springs. It was quiet, the kind of quiet Earth hadn't known since before first contact. He sat on the back steps, watching the sun bleed out behind the mountains, when a small figure padded around the corner. Kessa, she was holding something wrapped in wax paper. He stood slowly. "You walk here by yourself," she nodded, then held out the package. "My mom made this for you." He took it. Still warm, smelled like cinnamon and sugar. "What is it?" Apple turnover. He sat beside her on the step. "Haven't had one of those since basic." She swung her legs. "Are the aliens gone?" "For now," he said. "Will they come back?" Yoren looked out across the horizon. "Maybe, but next time they'll know who they're dealing with." Kessa thought about that for a while. "I drew something again." He glanced over. She pulled a page from her jacket. This time it was a picture of her standing on the moon, helmet on, holding hands with a tall figure in black armor. "That's you as a soldier," she said, "but I made your helmet look like a turtle." He laughed. "Why a turtle?" "Because they're tough but nice." He folded the drawing carefully and slid it into his jacket. "I'll keep it." She leaned against him, small shoulder against his ribs. "I'm going to be an astronaut one day." "Good," Yoren said. "We need more of those." They sat there until the stars came out, neither of them saying much, both knowing the universe was watching but for once keeping its distance. The Kavari delegation ship, still intact but stripped of propulsion, hung in orbit above the Pacific like an abandoned shrine. Earth Defense had sealed it off 2 weeks earlier, after the last formal transmission. No rescue came. No signal. The vessel remained cold, its lights dimmed to emergency glow, hull scorched in places where the Skyguard had scored it with warning fire. Yoren Oak stood in a pressurized walkway connecting the Earthside dock to the ship's forward airlock. His arm brace had been replaced with a lighter support mesh, bone regrowth nearly complete. He flexed his fingers, checking for stiffness. None. The doctors had cleared him for re-entry under protest. He'd insisted. He wasn't going in as a soldier this time, just a man with unfinished business. A second figure approached from the decontamination zone, shorter, broad-shouldered, wearing a dulled gray suit with a diplomatic tag stitched to the collar. "You're not cleared for this," the man said, stepping into Yoren's path. "I was requested." "By whom?" "There's no one alive on that ship." Yoren pulled a folded printout from his jacket and handed it over. The man scanned it, jaw tightening. "This was routed through obsolete Kavari protocol. It's not even signed." "Doesn't need to be. They used a pattern Earth doesn't have access to anymore." "Someone on that ship wants to talk." "That's ridiculous." "Then let me go in, talk to no one, and come back out. You can write it up as a systems check." The diplomat hesitated, then turned and waved at the tech team behind the glass partition. The airlock cycled. Inside, Yoren stepped into silence. The ship's interior was colder than expected, not freezing but enough to make his breath fog gently. The emergency lights pulsed along the corridor floor every 4 seconds, casting long shadows. He moved slowly, boots magnetized to the deck plates. The walls bore no damage. This hadn't been a combat vessel. It had come to Earth in peace. He reached the central chamber, what Earth's xenolinguist had labeled a concordium, the Kavari version of a council hall. The room was circular, with recessed seating and a central platform. 4 bodies lay there, wrapped in Kavari mourning cloth. The way the fabric had been folded, 12 creases on each corner, matched the Kavari rite of voluntary silence. Yoren knelt beside the nearest one, studying the cloth. It hadn't decayed. Whatever material it was, it resisted breakdown. A soft chime came from the far end of the room. He looked up. A panel slid open, revealing a figure, tall, not as broad as Wek Trell, with skin that shimmered silver blue under the emergency lights. The Kavari's left arm ended in a capped stub just below the elbow. Its right hand held a small, glowing cube. "I am Arvath," it said. "I sent the summons." Yoren didn't rise, didn't think anyone was left. I remained. Why? The cube flickered in the Kavari's hand. Because someone must. Yoren finally stood, watching the alien's movements. Arvath approached slowly, placing the cube on the platform beside the wrapped bodies. "Your people believe this vessel was abandoned," it said. "They are incorrect. We chose to stay here to see what came after your retaliation. We expected extermination. And you gave us silence." Yoren looked down at the cube. "What is that?" "The record," Arvath said, "of Vexel's error, of our deliberations, of the vote to remain. You may take it. No encryption. It will open when you ask it a question." Yoren hesitated, then picked up the cube. Its surface warmed under his fingers. "Why now?" he asked, Arvath's head inclined. "Because the war is over and no one has said it. We said it. No, you stopped firing." "That is not the same." Yoren pocketed the cube. "Why'd you stay behind? Someone had to witness your restraint. Your species is young. We thought you would lash out until nothing remained. You spat on a child." Vexel spat on a symbol. He did not understand that difference meant danger. "He died believing his actions were ceremonial. We failed to teach him otherwise." Yoren exhaled. "So what now? You go home and tell your people Earth's not worth the trouble?" "No," Arvath said. "I will not go home. You planning to die here? I already have. My name has been removed from our records. I am a witness, not a citizen." Yoren studied the alien's face. There were no visible signs of pain, but something in the stillness of its stance spoke louder than any wound. "You want to be buried with them?" "Yes." Yoren nodded toward the wrapped figures. "They chose death. They chose accountability." He looked around the room. "And the rest of your fleet, scattered, some in exile. Others waiting for new orders that will never come." Yoren took the cube from his pocket again. "If I take this back, what do you think Earth will do with it? Understand, I hope, or forget. You don't ask much. I ask only what can be given." Yoren turned toward the airlock corridor. "I'll send word. We'll give you a site. Quiet, no cameras, no speeches." Arvath bowed slightly. "Thank you." Yoren paused at the threshold. "You could come with me." "No, my place is here, among the ones who stayed." He stepped out without another word. Back aboard the Earthside dock, the diplomat was waiting, arms folded. "You found someone?" "I did." "And he wants to be left alone." The man frowned. "And that's all." Yoren handed him the cube. "This is what matters." The man turned it over in his hands, skeptical. "It's just glowing. Ask it a question." He didn't. Later that week, under an overcast sky in a coastal region of southern Chile, Earth Defense arranged a burial. No press, no announcements. Just a quiet crater carved into a cliffside, where 4 Kavari remains were placed in a vault sealed with alloy and volcanic stone. Arvath stood at the edge, watching. Yoren joined him briefly. "They'll leave you alone here," he said. "I know. You're not afraid. I am already dead." Yoren didn't push further. He simply nodded, then turned and left. 3 days later, the cube was analyzed by a joint team of diplomats, scientists, and cultural historians. It contained over 200 hours of internal deliberations, including audio from Vexel's pre-landing briefing. In it, he expressed confusion over Earth's obsession with biological offspring, calling it primitive. He believed the act would demonstrate humility. His advisors had not corrected him. The recording ended with a vote. 17 Kavari delegates agreed that if Earth responded with measured force, they would seek renewed talks. If Earth responded with disproportionate fury, they would accept defeat and exile themselves. Yoren declined to comment publicly. Instead, he returned to his temporary housing in Colorado Springs, where a small envelope waited at his door. Inside was a drawing this time of a large turtle wearing a medal, floating beside a small rocket ship. On the back, in careful handwriting, "Thanks for keeping the sky safe." Joran pinned it to the wall above his desk. No one spat on Earth again.